Hello and welcome everyone to the next GMG Indie Hour. This is episode 22. We've done 22 of these. It feels crazy to say that we had that many on the go. And this is a show where we shine a spotlight on lesser known and not mainstream tabletop war games, tabletop games, generally things in the indie design sphere that you might not otherwise seen if you're just sort of in the mainstream of, you know, the bigger named publishers out there like Hasbro or Games Workshop. This will give you access to seeing some cool new stuff. Now, every week, the patrons of the GMG community will pick a game, and we'll go through that game together in a patrons-only live show, which you can see here in the chat next to me. We have like a before and after, an intro and outro preamble, where we sit and chat about what's been going on, the game we picked, little details, and then this will air a week later live on YouTube, where the sort of like main viewership of this goes. But the patrons themselves select these games, so they get basically get everything a week in advance to be part of the show. And we have additional content, about a half hour's additional content before and after the show, where we get to talk about the games and plot what's coming up next. So this week's game is PUKEAPOCALYPSE. Now, I am not surprised as soon as this got put onto the poll options for the Indie Hour that this one got picked. This is a game by Glenn Ford, writing partner and co-host of the Rule of Carnage podcast with my buddy Mike Hutchinson over at Planet Smasher Games, and is his sort of foray into a neon grim dark of punks fighting in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where everyone's gonna die. But some quirk of fate at the end of the apocalypse has left everybody basically slowly filling up with radioactive toxic waste, and you're gonna shoot it all over each other. It's gross. It's vile. You can count this as my sort of like content warning for how filthy this game is. Filled with lots of swearing, lots of disturbing imagery, but in like a kind of Cabbage Pail Kids or Garbage Pail Kids lowbrow art style sort of way, where it's pop surrealism, right? It's just gross, weird, grimy, gory insanity. So it's not to be taken seriously. The game's supposed to be fun. And this is a 2x2 warband skirmish game with full campaign rules. Even though everyone's going to die, it's how do you go out and what kind of insanity you cause on the way out. That is sort of the point of the game. So without any further ado, let's dive in and check this sucker out. So this is available on Exalted Funderal's website. That's our publisher. And these guys are basically making a full color with PDF spiral bound version of this game with a whole host of accessories. You get tokens, you get some measuring gauges here, these fantastic punk zombie, bird flipping measuring gauges with 2-inch, 4-inch, 3-inch, and 1-inch sides. I'm really tempted to use these for other games too, because I think they're amazing. And they would work fantastic, ironically, for Infinity, which is really funny. Or even 40K. Or AOS, because Age of Sigmar, you can have your 3-inch engagement range there. 1-inch engagement for 40K and some standard move sizes on this. You can see this lovely art cover here, which is the PUKEAPOCALYPSE art cover. And this is what I talk about when I say lowbrow art. So you guys aren't familiar with that movement, 60s and 70s. It's a type of pop surrealism where you would get like weird imagery and iconography, and generally, like, the idea is that it's a disturbing, cartoony faux realism, but with lots of pop culture references. And it's very popular in the punk community, the biker community, the car community. And this is sort of the look that this game is going for. And it's not like I guess it's full color, spiral bound. The whole thing is full of wonderful illustrations. This is your last content warning, basically, for this. It's only $35 USD if you want to grab the physical copy that comes with all those accessories, the tokens and measuring gauges and stuff. And you get a copy of the PDF as well, so that you can, if you want to share it with your friends and be able to play a game together, you got everything that you want. And I'll link that in the video description for you guys to check out. So, again, this one was picked by very popular demand. You can see here on our GMG poll on the Patreon, it was at 36% of the poll overall. So plenty of people picked this one. And you can see here some of the other examples of what's been suggested. You can jump on here yourself and suggest a game. All you do is make a comment on the previous poll, and next week's poll will include that game. And we tend to pick, over time, we're going to get through all of these eventually. But this was this week's choice, and patrons get to, of course, throw in names, and then they all vote on just the order they get done in. We'll get through all of them eventually, right? And there's kind of an endless onslaught of games coming through that we get to choose and pick from. So I don't think we're ever going to run out of content. All right, let's talk about the rulebook itself. So we have here the PUKEAPOCALYPSE rulebook. It's available for download as soon as you buy the physical, or you can buy it again just in PDF as well. And I like the first design note that I have. I like the fact that there's a quick reference at the front. A lot of times we put quick reference sheets at the back. This one, it's right at the front. And we're going to go through all these things. But it's basically the turn phase, common terms. It's like tests. It's a D6 based game. So every test is a 4+ success. And then you can shove a scumbag, climb, avoid running away or being shoved off a ledge, and to activate certain gear and the growths on your body. There's move phase, starting with the first player and passing clockwise. Scumbags usually move 4 inches. You go in a straight line and roll for what you go through. The bile phase, starting with the last player to move and pass the counterclockwise, then you puke. So movement goes front to back, and then puking goes back to front. Sack it off phase, which is player with the least scumbags removes any of their scumbags they like, and then scumbags with no bile tokens will brew a bile token. And then you get your roasted puke into mop up, and it's basically the end of the bile phase. All right, so the setting. The PUKEAPOCALYPSE. It's always too hot. Your sweat burns. When you manage to piss, it comes out like maple syrup. This is the PUKEAPOCALYPSE, and it can fucking do one. PUKEAPOCALYPSE is a nasty, violent, nihilistic, foul-mouthed narrative campaign skirmish game. It's punk. It's horrible. It's full of puke, gore, and grue. It knows lots of rude words and likes to use them. The apocalypse has already happened. All you scumbags will die, and they'll have a thoroughly unpleasant time doing it. There's no God. There's no hope. There's a shit ton of vomit, and it's all gushing your way. All right, there's your final warning. This is it. We're diving in. Credits, as I said before, created and written by Glenn Ford, edited by the Tiger Wizard, and illustrations by Alexander Kostic, Lucas Kowalczyk, and the Tiger Wizard. Character sheets by Josh Bowens, layout by Josh Bowens, and the copyrights last year. Delightful miniatures as well by Cobblestone's Bob Murch, and some stuff from Crooked Dice. So like I said, 66-page rulebook. We'll dive in here with some of the basics. As I said, this is a what you need of a 2x2 inch playing surface. Call this the pit. Obviously, it's a punk game, so you're gonna have a pit. It's not a circle pit; it's a square pit. Just for my punks out there that don't know the difference between those two things. And a game is called a brawl. Your scumbags are your individual miniatures, and together they're called a band. Bands, again, punks. You want some stuff to make your table look like a radioactive hellscape. Some 12 6-sided dice per player. You might need fewer, but you won't need more, and at least 2 different colors of dice will help. A set of 30mm bile tokens, which can be punched out from the set if you buy the physical copy, or you can make your own. And the first player token that's used to activate scumbags front to back and back to front. And then finally, a measuring widget in inches and a band sheet for each player. So like if you buy this physical copy, you're going to have most of what's in here. Already just the terrain and the miniatures would be what you need. And there's a cool example. I do like this terrain that Glenn's made. I assume this is Glenn. He's made a real neon. It's got a real 80s. What's the word? It has a Hotline Miami kind of video game look to it. He's done a good job of it's simple, but it has that vibrant kind of like grossness. And I like the spray paint stripes on it. I think that's fantastic. A list of things that you might need. Some rancid environments, some plants made of meat, and some large pink boulders. Some wandering bastards. This is my favorite. A Vendigo, which is a vegan were creature. Vendigo. I have so many vegan friends. I'm going to call Vendigos now. Yeah, Travis is getting called a Vendigo. 6 rotters, which are horrible bile-bloated creatures like blood zombies. And 1 vom grove per player, a predatory plant. A swarm of radflies, hideous huge flies, a lone scumbag, just a random lonely loser. A polluted boar, a huge mutant pig creature. A time waster, a naturally occurring piss geyser. And if you play the Pointless Crusade, 1 mook per scumbag, who's a dumb follower. 1 snatcher per 2 scumbags, a fast-moving predator. And 1 FUB, a fat, ugly bastard. These are the accessories for when you're playing the campaign mode. So good. Look at this rock steady looking dude, Grim Neon and the Technicolor Nightmare. So this is a design note where they talk about why they've chosen this. You might note that the PUKEAPOCALYPSE is a very specific acid vomit punk aesthetic. We've chosen to carry this through on our minis and terrain, and this is because PUKEAPOCALYPSE is punk and wants to mess with what's accepted. In this case, the grim dark realism. So while we encourage you to try out freeing up your own style of grim neon and your own painting, PUKEAPOCALYPSE draws its inspiration from the grimdark of the INQ 28 movements, this is Inquisitor 28, and the filthy neon of the 90s gore and melt movies. So dirtier and more naturalistic styles work just fine. Be creative and don't let anyone, including me, tell you what to do with your art. Stick it to the man, which technically in this case I am. That's a great bit by Glenn. And you can see here again this delightful lowbrow. I like the dude in the zoot suit with the cowboy boots, and then this. I don't know if he's a pig man. He kind of looks like Animal, like if Animal from the Muppet Show was a punk and puking all over the place. All right, basics. We can just read the top lines. Pretty self-explanatory. Don't be a dick. Being a dick isn't punk. The rule of getting away with it. If you're still not sure, disagreeing on the rules, the version of what was being tried succeeds was the right one. If you still can't decide who was right, flip a coin. And I mean you, when the rules say scumbag does something or something happened to them, they mean the player who controls that scumbag does it. If the player who does not control a scumbag does something with a scumbag, it'll say it specifically. What dice do? Some of the terminology in this rulebook makes me so happy. Like, what dice do? What that dice do? Just explaining what a D6 and a D66 is. So a D6, it's a 6-sided dice. A D66 is your roll. One is the 10, one is the numerator. If you get a reroll, you reroll either both for the D66 or an individual dice for a D6. And when you test, roll a D6. If you get a 4 or higher, you succeed. A 3 or less is a failure. And you can choose to fail a test all the time by not rolling dice. Whenever a scumbag tests, you can choose to strain for it. You can do between 1 and 5 strain points, and you get to add that to your dice roll. However, when you do so, you gain that many bile tokens. Unless you've already burst, you have more than 13 in your guts. And the example there is, of course, Rotten really wants to do something, so makes a test and decides to add 2 to it by straining. However, they roll a 1 and still suck and roll a 1 to 3. They still gain the 2 bile tokens, and their test is not successful. Involuntary movement. There's 2 types, either controlled or automatic. Automatic is going to say how it does. Controlled is going to be by the player. And then running away. If a scumbag contacts the edge of the pit, they immediately stop. The controller may choose to have them run away. If they are moved involuntarily or placed in that player other than their control, they test. And if they succeed, they remember there. If they fail, they run away. Remember, you can strain to increase your chances of passing a test. If you run away, they're removed from the brawl. They're not dead. Scumbags that run away live to fight another day. They are alive. Humiliated with crap in their pants, maybe, but alive. And then crossing a line. At times, you need to draw a line. To do that, imagine a straight line from one thing to another. If the line is going to or from a scumbag, it goes to the center of the base. And anything else it can do, any part of this is desired line. Then imagine a second line against the close surface directly below the desired line. It's the track line. The scumbag's miniature could safely pass upright on all parts of the track line. It's a placeable line. Basically, can you angle your miniature so that the sides of your bases don't clip something? That's a placeable line. That's where you're going to go. Movement's important in this game because you need to be able to go across the things that you're doing and avoid the things you're not, because coming into contact with stuff will do things. So movement is pretty well described here and not vague. This is another great piece of art here. That this guy's just glued to the wall. And there's this other guy in the alley just freaking out. The handcuff earring also makes me really happy on this. I don't know if she looks like maybe she's a derby girl in a judge's wig. Not really sure what's going on there. And then Bile. So Bile tokens are important. The world is a decaying radioactive box at this point. Everything on the rattled to its core. I'm not going to shortcut it. A lot of this game revolves around the Bile and spraying at each other's faces. Bile is the main weapon your scumbags have, and when one builds up too much of it, they'll burst, which is bad. Follow the rules for placing and removing Bile tokens closely, otherwise it gets confusing. You note Bile with Bile tokens. It matters where they are. Make a pile of Bile tokens not on the pit or anyone else's band sheet. This is the supply. And whenever you go to the supply, whenever a Bile token is discarded, it goes back in the supply. A lot of the time, Bile token will be in the guts section of a scumbag's band sheet. Those Bile tokens are the scumbag's guts. And when Bile tokens go in their guts, that means they're in the band sheet. So basically, you're going from the big supply in the middle onto an individual person's guts, and you need to know who's carrying it. Whenever a scumbag brews Bile tokens, move them from the supply to the guts. They can never have more than 13. When they puke, and this happens a lot, you need to pick up all the Bile tokens from their guts before putting them into the pit, which is gipping, or when you gip, at which point the Bile tokens are in your hands. When you place a Bile token in your hand in the pit, you're spewing that Bile token. When a Bile token is placed in base contact with a scumbag, it has gunked that scumbag. Bile tokens can be gunking a scumbag, meaning it's in base contact with them, and you gunk a scumbag by placing Bile tokens in contact with them. You'll need to put them, move them around, and do stuff. Bile tokens can be stacked when placed, and you can stack up to any number. If they're required to stack, you can place them directly on top of each other, entirely overlapping. If the rules say to dump Bile tokens on one that has just been placed, take the Bile tokens from the supply and stack them on it. Dumped bile tokens cannot be used for any further effects, just shoving or flicking, and you can only ever dump bile tokens if you just spewed bile tokens in the first one. So as you can see from the diagram here, you're basically drawing like lines of puking to affect each other. So Baz, the skin, which is A, or here in the left bottom corner, is puking. And they've just gunked Ivan, B. Since Baz is facing Ivan, they can dump a bile token on Ivan. Ivan already has a bile token gunking him from someone else's puke, but this was in fact Baz's first gunking of Ivan, this puke. Luckily, the bile token already on Ivan allows Baz to chain to Bob, so Baz can spew the last bile token on Bob. So as you can see, basically, he's drawing a line. There's already a puke on him, so then he can chain off this guy and basically hook a new line towards somebody else. Since Baz has arsed Bob, and this is Baz's first gunking of Bob, this puke, they can dump bile tokens onto it as well. So you can put bile tokens under a scumbag's miniature, just pick them up and place them on top. If something you do with the bile token knocks over another player's mini, you're screwed up. Stop picking up the bile tokens you spewed. This activation, stack them in base contact with your active scumbag. Bile tokens are on a chain, and they're touching another scumbag's base. They can be counted as bile tokens for the purpose of checking chains. Everyone's bile tokens counts the same chains. Rivers of vomit shall fill the streets. Sometimes it's in a loop if a chain surrounds it. So Ivan has managed to chain together both the lady and the tramp by using the tramp's base as part of the chain. Remember, anyone can use your own tokens as chains to drop their puke right down your throat, and the order your puke matters. Also, abilities that let you remove tokens you placed mean that you can remove chains back to you and lessen the impact of response chunders. Response chunders. Oh my god. This game's out of its fucking mind, Glenn. Okay. Ooh, you can choose, you can sometimes flick a bile token. If you choose a bile token on the pit, not on a stack, then the ability to flick allows. Put a bent finger is basically you physically flick it. And sharply straighten the finger across the pit to freely move across the pit. Bile tokens that leave the pit due to being flicked or discarded. If a flick token knocks over the tokens around it, that's fine. So basically you can flick a token. It means that you can like shoot something around and it creates a disturbance in the chains. High pressure vomit hose. This is a real image right here. When spewing a bile token, it could legally be placed such that it would overlap a scumbag's base. That scumbag could be shoved. To shove a scumbag before placing the overlapping bile token test, if you fail to discard a bile token, if you succeed, place the bile token, and you might need to the scumbag, then slide the scumbag anywhere such that they remain in contact with the token, facing the direction of the active player's choice. So basically, you're putting the token underneath somebody, and then you're moving the guy to the edge, facing the token still. So it's like, it's the pressure of the vomit chain. It's like a fire hose of vomit, and it's shoving the guy around. If the shoved scumbag contacts a wall, they brew 2 bile token points because they start to like when they hit something. If the shoved scumbag contacts the edge of an elevated surface, they test. If they succeed, nothing happens. Otherwise, they fall off. So you can knock people off ledges and buildings. And remember, you can strain to increase the chance of passing a test. Just great. No notes. But you can see the diagram here. They're placing the token underneath the model. They're pushing them back off the token, and it pushes them into some radioactive goo. All right, so what if you got too much bile? Bursting. Various things will make a scumbag burst. When a scumbag is burst, remove them immediately. There's one exception. If they burst while puking, you remove them once they finish their puke. It'd be just rude otherwise. Scumbags that burst are dead. It is rarer, but there are other ways for scumbags to die. The effect is much the same, though. When a scumbag dies, they're removed. So you blow up. Why is the guy at the top left corner of this picture just Uncle Stan from Gravity Falls if he was a punk? It's Uncle Stan, Grunkle Stan, sorry, and now here he is bursting and exploding from puke at the end. So when they say bursting, this is what they mean. They mean exploding with radioactive vomit from the inside out. Just chundering to death. A sudden unpleasant impact. Sometimes a scumbag will die from something that makes them messily burst. Good. When a rule states that a scumbag dies due to a sudden unpleasant impact, they burst and all scumbags within 6 gain 4 bile tokens because they swallow a bunch of the vomit. Oh my god. This game, man. Gobbles and arseholes. At various points, particularly when puking, you'll need to know whether you're aggroing Who and in which orifice? Imagine a straight line goes through your mouth to the butthole of a scumbag, or as close as you can bear to imagine that being. Remain consistent remain consistent on a given scumbag. If you're nasty, you can point on the base to be sure. This is the line of shaft. So basically, where on the ass the stuff comes out. When line of sight comes out of a scumbag's mouth, any scumbag it crosses is faced. Being faced is mutual. A scumbag can be faced by you or then also faced by them. When line comes at their back end, any scumbag it crosses can be arsed by them. So, what is happening? This is the most unhinged indie hour. So basically, you're facing someone, you're faced when your face is towards them. When your butthole is facing somebody, you're arsed to them. And occasionally, arsings will happen basically when you burst. Before brawling, decide if you're playing a one-off. If you are, go ahead. If not, check on the ongoing misery table. It won't matter until you finish the brawl, but better to know. Find your losers. Figure out how you're wasting your time. What are you doing? Set it up and then mess each other up. And that's the 3 steps of playing a game. So Losers Club. Decide how many scumbags you're each going to have in your band. 5 or more is more than anyone ever really needs. Fewer if you're in a rush. More if you really have nothing better to do. Depending on how many players you might want to reduce the number of scumbags. So if you have like 3 players, play with 3 each. 4 players, play with 2 each, etc. There are different cliques of scumbags. The Doggers, the Vom Cultists, the Queen Sisters, the Skinless Skins, the Straight Edgers, and the Psychobillies. Roll a d6 for each scumbag and write the result in the guts box in the band sheet, and this is their bile level. Write down what clique they are, and name them if you feel like it. Not that they'll be around long enough to earn their names. What they give is the ability, they'll give them options if you're playing with Ongoing Misery, which is the campaign setting. So Doggers, giving into the beast within, has made Doggers feral, primitive, hairy, and horny. They do dominance displays. Whenever a Dogger comes to base contact with a scumbag, irrespective of which one moved, if the Dogger has more bile tokens in its guts than the other scumbag, at that moment they make contact, they may choose to discard a bile token from either of their guts. Vom Cultists, finding oneness with a wave grants followers of the cult a Vom of strange peace and the power to control the flow. They're surfers. Be the wave. If a Vom Cultist places a bile token on a scumbag, if the Vom Cultist controlling player has more bile tokens in their hand than other scumbags have in their guts, the Vom Cultist may discard any bile tokens from the Vom that speed this activation. Because they just chill, man. They just chill. The Queen Sisters, former rulers broken by the PUKEAPOCALYPSE. The Queen Sisters constantly seek control over the many. They're chained heat. If the Queen Sisters place a bile token that chains 2 enemy scumbags together, the Queen Sister can discard any bile tokens the Queen Sister speed this turn. The Skinless Skin. Some of the skins basically don't have any skin on anymore. Despite the skins now missing most of their actual skin, they've kept the fundamental ideal of pushing people around. They're bully boys. If a skinless skin shoves a scumbag, the skinless skin may place all bile tokens that were overlapping the shoved scumbag before sliding them to the underneath of the shoved scumbag after sliding them to it. So basically you can accumulate them all. Those bile tokens cannot be used to shove again and must be placed as centrally under the scumbag as possible. The Straight Edgers are obsessed with what they call sniping, which mostly consists of a largely abortive plan to upchuck into a balloon. A Straight Edger can flick the first bile token they spew, each puke. So you can flick the thing away, which is cool. But that could, like, if you flick it well, that means you could chain off it potentially into things. So like if you don't have that many bile tokens, you could flick it near another model and then chain another token into them to actually hit them. Psychobillies. Rad pollution causes some scumbags' brains to swell and throb horribly. Psychobillies think it's a good look. If it's a psychobilly places a bile token that completes a loop around a single scumbag, the psychobilly may discard any number of bile tokens in the pit, not gunking scumbag, so you can get rid of it. He's a bile kinesis. So these are your 6 different cliques that you can be part of, and they give you the various bonuses basically depending on which one it is. What you doing? You need to find out what's going on. Roll whatever. You can just choose if you want to find out your time waster. Then you can add either or both the Wandering Bastards and Ransom Environments for flavor. So it could be This'll Do, Mine, the Fountain of Eternal Piss, King of the Hill, Hunt the Pickle, Vom Collectors. All of these could have the additional accessories that were described at the beginning of the game. Wandering Baskets could be a pack of Rotters, a Vendigo, a Vom Grove, Radflies, a Lonely Scumbag, or a Polluted Boar. And the rancid environment can be mostly rotten, thumbpricks, flapping meat, unfeasibly large pink boulders, a beer scooter, or unboot. And you set it all up. During the brawl, it's 3 phases, right? Move, bile, and then sack it off. The start of the brawl, everyone rolls D66. Whoever gets the highest will then go first during the move phase. giving them the first player marker. So another bit of game design I really like. A lot of people do roll-offs as just like a d6 against d6. The likelihood of tying on a d6 roll-off is so much lower, right? I'm talking about a 1 in 36 chance versus a 1 in 6 chance. I love that. I think that's great. Sorry, it's 1 in 6 times 6, 36. Actually, it's way higher than that. It's 66 times 66% chance. There's a 1 in 36% chance that you tie. There's a 1 in 66. Sorry, 66 times 66 is 300. 1 in 396. 300, 400. I can't hold that in my head. A lot higher, basically. Players take a turn to activate one scumbag at a time. To activate a scumbag, the player selects one that hasn't activated during the current phase of the round. To perform a single action of the phase's type, either move, puking in the battle phase, and follow the action's instructions. The chosen scumbag is the active scumbag. Once they're finished doing the actions, do something that they'll basically note that they're activated, put an activation marker down or something like that. And as you said at the top, you're going to activate your movement with the first person clockwise, and then backwards puking from the last person activates. So if you've got the first player token, you'll have the advantage on setting up where everybody is, potentially, because the last person to go actually, I think, has the advantage because they know where everybody is at the end of the move, and they get to puke first. So technically, being the last player is the most advantageous place to be in this game. During the move phase, scumbags will have a pace of 4 inches. During the walk, they'll either walk, climb, or jump. They do a placeable line, the length of the place. They can't go through a wall. They can't go to the edge of the pit. Place scumbag at the end of the line, facing a direction of your choice, and check what the line went through. Roll on the table matching the things they went through in order for the controlling player's choice, and do things to the scumbag accordingly. So basically whatever you pass through. Lump. A lump is anything the scumbag clearly couldn't pass through that's within 2 inches of something they could. So the scumbag could scramble over or swerve around it. And that means the line can go through walls within 2 inches of a doorway, for example. For each separate lump gone through, roll on the following table. Basically, if you might accidentally catch yourself on something as you're moving, you could blah on a 1, it catches you in the wrong place, they immediately puke. 2 to 3, douche. Something dangling cracks a ledge as they hurdle, they brew a point, and then 4 to 6, just they make it through, and everything's fine. So it allows you to maneuver around stuff, even if you can't quite get there in a straight line. There's just chances you might bump into it and something bad's going to happen. Garbage, I think it looks like scumbags should be able to move through it, but that's something should happen if they do. So swamps, rod jungles, and tech corridors, for each separate instance, roll on the following table. They could go and brew. They could go check it out, see something amazing in there, something wondrous, like a puddle in the shape of Jesus or some nice pens. Place them in the center of the garbage that caused the roll. They could maybe puke. They could walk 4 inches away if they get creeped out by it. Or if they get hit by a gut-sucking fly and lose a bile token. So again, movement's going to be weird because the whole point is that you're constantly trying to hold in radioactive vomit, and it's not a simple movement phase. There's a lot of what's on the table that I'm interacting with, and you could even bump into somebody else. So friendly scumbags you can squeeze past, but on a 1 you might brew 3, on a 2 to 3 you brew 1, on a 4 to 6, you're fine. And unfriendly scumbags, you might brew 3 if you get pancaked on a 1 or a 2. 3 to 5, swap and sick, you get both +1 bile tokens because you eat each other's puke a little bit. And then on a 6, you get in each other's way and nothing happens. So more likely to get by friends than enemies, but the net result is the same. You're going to brew more. Rules for climbing and jumping. And then finally the bile phase, where you start to puke. Whenever a scumbag activates during this phase, they immediately puke. If they have no bile tokens in their guts, they make a controlled involuntary walk with a pace of 2 as they stagger around with dry heaves. If they have at least 1 bile token in their guts, they can choose to hold it in or let it go. If you hold it in, roll a d6 for every bile token. If you roll 3 or more of the same number, you burst and die. If they don't burst, add a bile token. So you can hold it in, but you got to roll for every bile token, and if you roll triples, you will die. And then let it go. Roll a d6 for a bile token in your guts. If you roll 3 or more of the same number, this comeback bursts anyway, but you don't remove them until after they've puked. And then Gip. Name an enemy scumbag, then spew all the bile tokens at once on them. Each bile token must be placed that it fulfills at least one condition. So the bile token is in base contact with the puking scumbag, so it's chained to the next one towards the puking away from him. And so the bile token is chained to the bile token at the end of a scumbag spewing. If it gunks a scumbag, dump a bile token on it. If either scumbag has faced each other, so basically if you're facing, if the bile token gunks a scumbag, dump one bile token on it if it's activated a scumbag and they have arsed each other. If the active scumbag doesn't place at least one bile token on the named scumbag, they burst. And then if the scumbag is burst, remove them. They're really very dead indeed. So you're trying to chain the puke towards each other. You try not to blow up while you do it. And both sides will have problems with this. Mopping up. If a puke occurs during any phase other than the bile phase, mop up as soon as the puke is completed. If it's the bile phase, wait until after all the scumbag pukes are done and then mop this up. So discard your bile tokens not touching any scumbags. Move any bile tokens gunking only one scumbag. That scumbag's guts. And for each bile token, more than one scumbag. For each bile token gunking more than one scumbag, each scumbag they're gunking brews a bile token and then discard the ones in the pit. So basically, if it's hitting more than one person, they brew instead of like eating it, because it like goes both directions. And then just take that one away. Remember, no scumbag can have more than 13 bile tokens in their guts. Any excess get discarded, and they're not being precious about placements, so this is fine, as no one's taking the piss. Tokens not quite touching each other are fine, and if they overlap a little, don't stop from ingesting them. Placing them quickly and keeping the game moving is more important than anything else. So during that, you're going to mop up, you're going to take everything away, it's not touching somebody, and then people are going to suck up the rest of it that's on the ground. Yeah, and then I shall fall upon you for a great height. Scumbags can and ideally should gob on people from above. For the person placing a bile token during a puke, a bile token that look as if they're touching, if viewed from directly above, count as touching. So basically, you could puke directly down and then make the spray keep going. The sack it phase, if when scumbags decide it's time to sack off, they think better of it. The player with the fewest scumbags at the start of this phase has a single opportunity to remove any of their scumbags from the brawl that they wish. And if they remove their last scumbag, they sack it off entirely, in which case they definitely lose, no matter the conditions of the game. Any scumbag removed by sacking it off remains alive. And once the sack off has been done, any scumbags with no bile tokens in their guts brew one, and they start a new round. The brawl concludes if there's no scumbags left, one side sacks off entirely, a time waster's done conditions are fulfilled. And the brawl then ends with the end of the next round. Check the time waster's win conditions to see who isn't the loser. If you're playing one off, that's it. It's done. Otherwise, go to ongoing misery, which is the campaign rules. And we get a example of what to do for your first game, just to speed things up. For place, time, doing, done, and win. Whoever doesn't have a scumbag touching the lovely token loses. So it's place, set up the pit as fairly clear. In the middle, place a small raised area about 3 inches tall and across. Place token representing something lovely. This is a lovely token. A nice sausage or a teddy bear or something. And then you put scumbags in the pit. No scumbags in the pit can be within 3 inches of an enemy or 5 inches of the lovely token. And then doing, try to be the only one touching the lovely token. Shoving other scumbags away from it is a good way to do that. And done, this ends if only one scumbag's touching the lovely token at the end of a round. So basically, if you manage to hold it, have no one else touching it, then you win. You're finished. So that's a great example of like a quick play, quick, easy to set up one. That's probably the one we'll run when we do a PUKEAPOCALYPSE game. And then finally, ongoing misery. If you're playing just one brawl, you might think things aren't that bad. Otherwise, you'd be super wrong. You can either grab a Milton Keynes municipal record by copying from page 68 or just scribble everything you want in the back of a fag packet. Generate your scumbags as usual for one-off game. If this is your first time linking brawls, keep them as the same clique. But for each campaign that you play, you may make a new band of the same clique as one of the previous bands. Record the details of your scumbags. And during each brawl, you'll need to do a bit of record keeping, as detailed in No Growing, No Learning below, which will let you process your scumbags' growths. After each brawl, you'll visit Milton Keynes Piss Market to maybe buy gear. Also, at the end of each brawl, you'll need to record the number of brawl tokens in each of your scumbag's guts as their current bile level. Dead scumbags have a current bile level of 1. As will be seen, not only do scumbags die quite regularly, they do not progress their abilities until they die. Players may question the effort of converting and painting miniatures for scumbags that will be lucky to ever last through a brawl. Scumbags do not actually learn anything ever. When they die, they're immediately replaced by some sort of inbred relation with a more advanced form of their condition. So basically, Landfill 1 is replaced by Landfill 2, and everyone agrees he's twice the man Landfill 1 was. If you don't get that reference, watch more Broken Lizard movies. It plays fast, really fast. I strongly encourage you to do at least 2 or 3 brawls in a single session, linking them together with these rules. And you get growth. So basically, the campaign rules boil down to dudes can get better through growth. That's when you die, you get better. And then gear can be things that would make you be better. Your Your currency is piss points. So PPs. Piss comes in a range of qualities and quantities, but for our purpose, it comes in piss pints. Sorry. These might be soda cans filled with precious light straw or gallon tubs of dark and sinister goo, but it's all the same. If you definitely lost, you get a piss pint. If they lost, they get D6. If they didn't lose, they get D6 plus 1. And put this on the bands of useless stuff. You can buy things in the place of useless stuff, like a buckety. These are all the insane gears: skid lids, ropes, splat hammers, vom trumpets, puddles, moon boots, crash pads, and loud hailers. A skid lid. You found a new crash helmet. One previous owner. At least he'll be previous if you can scoop it off him. Scoop him out of it. This scumbag treats obstacles up to 3 inches of height and lids as lumps rather than walls. So basically, you're able to crash through things. A splat hammer. If you catch a big old swollen rotter just right with a good swing and sledge, you can pop them everywhere. If this scumbag ends its move in base contact with an enemy scumbag with at least 7 bile tokens in their guts, the enemy rolls a d6 for every one. If the enemy rolls 3 or more of the same number, they die from a sudden unpleasant impact. Basically, you have a hammer that can initiate bursts. And then a vom trumpet lets you push your vomit further away. So yeah, cool gear that you can buy. And sorry. And this is just the name of this table. It just kills me. Built on pissy rolls. Whenever 5 more piss points are spent in a single visit, roll on the following table and add the result to the Milton Keynes Municipal Record as a development. Each can only be added once. So you get market growth. Each time you visit, there's a new bastard trying to rip you off. Generate new marketplace gear. This gear and its replacement costs 1 PP more than the standard list. So basically, the more you spend, the harder things are going to get to do. The 17th hand store generated new marketplace gear. This gear costs half its listed piss pints. After each one, remove it. Do not replace this gear when it's bought from the marketplace. That's the last one, basically. Yeah, so, or piss bank, buy low, sell high, negotiate hard. Sure, when it's buckets of stale piss, it's hard to feel like a shark, but still, this is what it is. The player with the least piss pints may re-roll when they generate piss pints as a reward at the end of a brawl. Yeah. And then we have our growing, which is our campaign sort of experience. So first you generate growths, and when they talk about growths here, so you die and you come back as landfill 2, who's twice the man landfill 1 was. But you've generated growth. When they say growth, they don't mean experiential. They mean physical growths on your body. So it could be something like actual growth. Shit, you grew a few inches. That's weird. So you just got bigger. The scumbag has a pace of 5 inches. You just walk faster because you got bigger. Out both ends. The scumbag may treat scumbags that are have arsed them as being faced when they puke. So you can just come up both ends. It's so dumb. Right up in your face. Double the number of additional bile tokens the scumbag dumps for being faced. Or R&R, the scumbag may increase or decrease its bile level by 1 before setup. Yeah. What insane experience system. Because when you die, you come back. And then we've got all of our feralities. The doggers, as a dogger's mutation grows, they increasingly lose contact with their humanity, becoming compelled by their basest drives. So your clique can basically determine what you get as well. So you can have a special what did you do? So these are achievements. Either end a move in base contact with 2 or more opponents, have double the bile tokens in guts of an opponent in base contact 3 or more opponents in a single move phase. You can randomly generate one of these what did you do's, and then randomly generate growth to get from it, like clawed butts. That's a name. Opponents in base contact with the dogger cannot move. Or wet patches. The dogger may ignore BT from gunking a scumbag the dogger's in base contact with, so he doesn't gain his own bile tokens. Going deep. Treat dominance displays as reading 2 bile tokens instead of a bile token. The vom cultists, again, these little achievements will then unlock the growth. So having 5 more bile tokens gunking you, or remove bile tokens using Be the Wave. And you get things like Zen Phlegm, Chai Under, or Pressure Point Puke. Challenger at the start of the Bile phase, this Vom Cultist may gain D6 Bile tokens, deciding before rolling, or Pressure Point Puke. After this Vom Cultist Gips, you may have them brew as many Bile tokens as in your hand, and then after adding the Bile tokens to their guts, double the number of Bile tokens in your hands. The Queen's Sisters. What an illustration. Look at this monkey. Oh my god. The Skinless Skins, because of course they are. Because he's a zombie that also used to be a skin. And the Straight Edgers, who never stop talking about Straight Edge. Psychobillies. You know, rockabillies with psychic powers. And then we get the environmental stuff. So things like like in this, you get an idea of it now, right? Thumbpricks, mostly rotten. The Beef Scooter. The evil environmental stuff. The Wandering Bastards, so rules for the Vendigo. Look at him. He moves 6. And he'll do things like walk, climb into you. Special rules: when the Vendigo ends in base contact with a scumbag, they'll attempt to eat them. The scumbag must test to avoid having their head bitten off, and if they fail, the Vendigo eats their head with a happy little smacking crunchy noise. The scumbag's dead. Handily, the Vendigo is no longer cursed with veganism and should be immediately replaced by a lone scumbag. So he turns back into a dude if he eats somebody. Packs of Rotters, the zombies. These guys are basically your random environmental conditions. They'll do things like during setup, place D6 Rotters as close to the middle of the table as possible. They always count something 13 Bile points, and they will puke during the first Bile phase that at least 4 scumbags or all remaining scumbags are within 6 of them. When they puke instead of normal placement, place their Bile tokens directly on scumbags within 6, spread as evenly as possible. The Vom Grove, which is a big like vomiting plant. The Rad Flies run towards you. Of course, the big pig, the polluted boar. And then Time Wasters. These are the things you want to do. These are your scenarios, right? So, for instance, this will do. You just managed to find a DOS that's pretty sure will mean the rad rats won't eat your feet when you pass out or some other bunch of toss spots want it. Time to gob in their faces and boot them in the nuts. So make sure there's an area in the middle of the pit, roughly 12 inches square. It looks like it might be enclosed enough to not normally shit shelter, to not be a totally shit shelter. Make sure that it has at least one structure and at least one floor in the 12-inch areas of the DOS. Make everywhere else look like a real shithole. Take turns placing scumbags wherever you like on the pit. No scumbag in the pit can be within 3 of an enemy. And then try to be the only ones in the DOS. Done. This ends if one side has no scumbags in the DOS at the end of a round, or one side has double the scumbags in the DOS of all others. And finally, win. Whoever has no one in the DOS from the brawl and definitely loses. Anyone else who doesn't have the most scumbags is going to have a loss. It's like a taken hold. The Fountain of Eternal Piss. Oh my god, look at that drawing. Hunt the Pickle. just insane. And the Pointless Crusade, which is an little narrative campaign where you'll have mooks that come with you, and then you encounter the Fat Man. And then we've got our appendix and index. So our roster sheets, the Milton Keynes Municipal Record. Keeping track of what's happened in the marketplace. Everybody's band, right? So our 5-person bands, and then a quick glossary at the end for any of the words that are all sort of like highlighted, right? Because they'll have game terms. And a quick ref at the end as well. And that's it. Training videos via the QR code. So there it is, a look at PUKEAPOCALYPSE. Man, what a title! I gotta tell you, this is a real what was I gonna say? A real wild one when it comes to actually going through the rules, because the rules really do reflect what it is. And good on Glenn for writing a game that thoroughly commits to the bit. What this really is it's like a placement game. It's a bit of a Gaslands, because your scumbags are going to sort of like drift around, trying to face each other, not face each other. And then they're going to dump all these tokens, and you're trying to manage a resource, which is the Bile tokens, while your stuff is sort of like drifting around. And then also try to accomplish the mission. Having a not experience point based system, but a deaths based system encourages the players to play the game the way that the universe in the background kind of intends. And it pushes the the puke, chaos, murder factor of the game as also the correct way to play it, because that's how you get your mutations and your growths and your ability to win. And then being sort of achievement based for each of the factions, where you've got 6 different achievements you're trying to do to get the faction based sort of like growths and mutations at the end of it all. As some distant genetic like freak relative shows up, landfill 4, 5, and 6, you get this like it means less accounting, more fast playing, but you still get the joy of the Cracker Jacks of having people develop and be different game to game overall, because new weirder versions of them show up. So your warband does get weirder and more insane over the course of the campaign, and it does because it's only a 5 model campaign with no point system. It encourages you to make weirder versions of the models as they sort of like develop and become more grotesque and mutated and kaleidoscopically colored. So yeah, great job on this one. I think this one's worth a fun, if you're into that hashtag 28 community, it's a fun side project. It's not super model intensive. You can make a table for it in about 2 minutes, because it's a 2x2 post-apocalyptic table where just toss some neon lights onto it. You'd have a lot of fun playing with like LEDs and stuff too, and just doing the lighting to get your neons as well. And the full kit and caboodle PDF, physical rulebook, and all of the tokens and accessories is $35. Can't really go wrong with this one. So there it is, a look at PUKEAPOCALYPSE. And if you are watching this live on YouTube at some point that same day, as it goes up, we are recording the next one on Patreon, and you can put suggestions in the poll post, which is pinned usually on the Patreon page every day, and get in on this as we record our next indie hour. So big thanks for watching, everybody. Go check out more indie games, and we'll see you next week. Don't mash. Up then.